Hello, my name is Dr. AnnGaudino. I'm an Associate Professor of Education Leadership and Education at Millersville University of Pennsylvania. So pleased to be presenting virtually today for the Comparative and International Education Society 2020 International Conference. I'd like to share with you today a little bit about my research surrounding school district administrator perceptions and hiring practices of teachers who participated in international student teaching placements. A little bit about my background. At one point, I was a student teaching coordinator, and as part of that, I designed some international student teaching placements. And that interest led me to research this further at other institutions, to look both at student teacher opinions as well as the faculty advisor opinions, and then finally teachers who had previously student taught abroad and what opinions they had of the experience. All of this has contributed, I feel, to my 30 years in the field of education, 20 years in education leadership, and now 10 years in higher education. So pleased to share this with you today. This study was designed to investigate school district administrator perceptions and hiring practices of teachers who participated in international student teaching experiences, and specifically 30 administrators from 12 states across the United States were interviewed. These administrators were central office figures. They were superintendents, assistant superintendents, and human resource directors. The responses and practices of these administrators in the districts that they represent were compared with the perceptions of student teachers and teachers from previous studies who had student taught abroad. Analysis of the participant administrator narratives really provided a holistic picture of the way in which they reflect on the impact of international and diverse student teaching experience. Administrator participants concurred that international student teaching experience really helps teachers a great deal. It helps them to develop increased personal confidence, cultural awareness, ability to self-reflect, ability to differentiate instruction for diverse learners. And they felt that those who had student taught or taught abroad did this to a greater degree than those who had simply taught within the United States. While the student teachers and teachers in previous studies believed that student teaching and teaching abroad helped them to get a job, that it helped them in the hiring process, in this particular study, 29 out of 30 of the administrators indicated that in fact their districts have no formal way of accounting for international student teaching experience any differently than student teaching experience within the United States. And when asked why this was so, most really didn't have any solid reasons. However, all indicated that the hiring practices that they do have account for diverse student teaching and diverse teaching experiences in a way that is very valuable to them, but it does not differentiate for international placements. A little bit about the theoretical framework. This study was underpinned by Bennett's developmental model of intercultural sensitivity. The DMIS was developed with a grounded theory approach based on Glaser and Strauss and Corbin. And Bennett described two phenomena, one being ethnocentrism and the other being ethno-relativism. Ethnocentrism, a person relies on their own culture, whereas ethno-relativism, a person relies on the experience of many different cultures and sees many different kinds of possibilities. Bennett felt that there were 6 stages that a person could potentially move through, going from being ethnocentric to ethno-relativistic. A person doesn't have to make that change, but oftentimes when they're living or part of a different culture, they almost have no choice. They're pushed in that direction. And so for that reason, student teaching abroad really helps to expand teachers' worldviews. It helps them to become more ethno-relativistic, which in turn helps them to serve a greater variety of students. When we look at studies regarding student teachers and their anticipated benefits of student teaching abroad, they said many good things, developing global vision and competence, personal awareness and self-confidence, job opportunities, increased ability to self-reflect on professional practice. And interestingly enough, those perceptions align quite significantly with the perceptions of teachers who had previously student taught abroad. Bryan and Sprague in 1997 were among the first to describe how teachers who had student taught felt about the experience. And they said that teachers believed that it had helped them in the hiring process, their attitude towards students, flexibility of teaching, ability to differentiate instruction, have greater cultural awareness, greater self-confidence. And this really continued on in another study later on by Shively and Misko in 2012, where they specifically talked with administrators, 18 administrators, in the 38 largest school districts in one quadrant of one Midwestern state. And these administrators, again, really said much of the same thing to their belief. International student teaching and international teaching really are beneficial. However, they did have some caveats. They said, quote, "The burden of proof to demonstrate transferability of this experience to the interviewing school rests with the interviewee. To a small extent, the country in which the experience gained does matter." So therefore, Shively and Misko concluded that international student teaching experience is very valuable as long as the teacher can portray that within the interview process and specifically portray how that international experience then translates to that district. So I enacted this study to help fill and perhaps expand some of the research and to look at really this phenomena across the United States as much as possible to see what patterns did or did not exist. So participants in this study, again, were 30 central office administrators. They came from the states as following: 4 from California, 3 from Florida, 3 from Michigan, 3 from New York, 3 from Pennsylvania, 3 from Texas, 2 from Arizona, 2 from Georgia, 2 from Iowa, 2 from Massachusetts, 2 from Illinois, and 1 from Colorado. And I individually interviewed each one of them using some very systematic steps. As I read the questions, the interviewees also had a copy of them in hand so that they could read along with me. And at the end of their response, I did perform a member check to make sure that I was understanding what they were asking and what they were saying. All of the interviews were recorded, and then I transcribed those using a tape-based abridged method. Data was analyzed using a long table approach per Kruger and Casey, and also using NViva software. The questions that I posed to administrators fell along these lines. How, if at all, does your district account for international student teaching experience in the hiring process? Second, why does or does not your district account for international student teaching experience in the hiring process? Third, does your district account for other types of diverse teaching experience? If so, how and why, and what kind of experiences are counted? And then how, if at all, do you and your district value international student teaching and diverse experiences? The findings from this study demonstrated that all participant administrators believe that student teaching abroad is a valuable experience and that it has an effect on the lives of teachers and ultimately the students whom they serve. Some of the most common terms that they used were things like transformative and life-changing. They believed that there was an increased sense of cultural awareness. One participant summarized saying, "From student teaching abroad, teachers develop the skill to respond to diversity in students better than teachers who have only taught in America. They understand and can better meet the needs of our students." Some of the most frequent words were empathy, understanding, and student-centered. The participants also believed that teachers who had student taught abroad had an increased sense of confidence, that they were more experienced, and that they felt more sure of themselves coming into a new position. They had an increased ability to self-reflect and to improve their professional practice. Overall, they had a greater success as they transitioned to the district, they delivered better instruction, and in the long term, they had consistently high evaluations. Now, despite all of these benefits, one of the things that all of the administrators acknowledged is that generally there is a lack of means to account for international experience in the hiring process. In fact, 29 of the 30 participants indicated that their district does not have any formal way of accounting for such experience. And when asked why, they really didn't have firm answers. Some said they didn't know, others said we've never done it that way, and others said that they are accounting for them, but just in general as a diverse kind of experience, but they felt it would be better if they were accounted for more specifically. There were really only 2 variations of this. One administrator who indicated that per state code, their district could not account for international student teaching any different. And the other was an administrator from the West Coast who acknowledged that his district actually has a lot of teachers and a lot of student teachers who have taught abroad coming to their district. And so in essence, they were really kind of pushed to the point that they had to develop some kind of specific accounting process for it. While most administrators had no formal way of accounting for the international experience, all did have a way for accounting for diverse student teaching experience. Administrators in urban districts indicated that, for example, if someone had student taught or taught in an urban area, that they were more likely to hire them, given all other factors being equal. One administrator said, when a student teacher or teacher has experience in an urban setting that is similar to ours, and they're successful in that setting, then I'm more confident that they will be successful in my district as well. The same could be said across diverse populations, with those who had student taught or taught in great diverse settings coming to a similar setting. Once one administrator said, when a teacher has already taught students and worked with parents who are Asian, they have a better understanding of the culture and are more likely to be successful in our area. So some discussion surrounding this. This study adds to the body of literature that talked about student teaching abroad and findings of not only how student teachers feel, but also how teachers feel as well. All of these studies really indicating from the perspective of the teacher and the student teacher that they see tremendous value in this. This is supported well by Danielson 2007, Strong 2009, and Marzano, all of whom feel that diverse experiences help to improve professional practice and also who help to have a greater sense of self-reflection on practice, which again, all of the student teachers and teachers were saying throughout the studies. This also expanded on the former study I mentioned, Shively and Misko, which was taking place in one state, and now, of course, this expanded across many different states. Finally, the study suggests that teachers with international student teaching experience do not have a unique advantage in the hiring process, despite their feelings that they do. Administrators do not account for international student teaching experience any differently than any other type of diverse teaching experience, even though they value it more and differently. It should be noted with this particular group of administrators that all 30 of them had acknowledged that they had some kind of abroad learning or teaching or administrative experience. Some of those were very short-term, a couple weeks, and others were for years. I did not specifically recruit administrators who had that kind of experience. It just so happens that the 30 who decided to participate did. So I am drawing the conclusion that perhaps that they participated because, in fact, they had some belief in this. A limitation of the study, of course, then is exactly the same. So if we took administrators who had not had this abroad experience, would they feel the same way about student teaching abroad? And that's an area definitely for future research. Some recommendations that come out of this, universities that offer student teaching abroad should definitely continue to do so because the students and the teachers and the faculty advisors all feel that it's a really good experience. But they need to be realistic with everyone about what those benefits are and what they are not. Student teaching abroad in and of itself does not appear to be a helpful factor for teachers in the hiring process unless they're able to discuss such experience in terms of how it makes them a stronger candidate because they can relate better and teach the unique body of students in that district. So universities can help with this by helping their student teachers with job applications and interview skills to bring forth how exactly their unique student teaching abroad experience relates to the district where they are applying. The other thing that came out in all of these various studies is how much student teachers who have student taught abroad improve in their self-reflection on their professional practice and their ability to improve their professional practice, even more so than what they had experienced at the university level. So this is an area where universities could improve by examining how they could better help students, whether they're student teaching in the States or abroad, to develop their ability to self-reflect and improve their own professional practice. So in conclusion, international student teaching placements do make a difference in the lives of teachers and the students and schools that they serve. This experience brings with it a necessity for the student teacher to embody ethno-relativism, for after all, when one is immersed in another land, one must participate in that culture if for no other reason than for simple survival. If having such ethno-relativism was important only in the foreign land, it would remain there when the student teacher came back to the States. However, by multiple accounts of student teachers who student taught abroad, their abroad experience was a life-changing experience in which they learned how to self-reflect deeply on their professional practice, to improve their teaching, interact, and be comfortable and confident with those from other cultures, and in doing so, developed a level of self-confidence never before felt in their American-based placements, even if those placements were with diverse populations. The student teachers brought these attributes home because these attributes had become so intricately woven into the fabric of their being and their professionalism. As districts seek to prepare their students for an increasingly global society, future research could investigate how they can account uniquely for global teaching experiences. For through such experiences, teachers are becoming global citizens, and they can help our students to become better global citizens themselves. Such role modeling does not bring reform to teaching, for reform is to change what exists. Instead, teachers with a global vision bring new forms to their students to prepare them to adapt and to lead in a future world. Thank you so much for joining me for this presentation. Again, I'm Dr. AnnGaudino, Millersville University of Pennsylvania in the United States. Thank you so much.